Hello and welcome back to the channel, lads and lassies. Today we're going to be reviewing the new, the improved Spider-Man, or as we should say, Across the Spider-Verse. So if you don't know, this is my very good friend Stuart. No, he does not have a channel. No, he's not used to doing these things, so this is a very first thing for him. But I thought I'd bring him on because I do believe he's got very good opinions on a lot of movies, and he does have some good takes, and I thought they should be shared with people because I like to play games with Stu. He's a really funny guy, but not many people know how cool of Stu really is as a guy. So I thought I'd bring him on and expose him a wee bit, just give you a wee taster at least.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Adam, man, and looking forward to talking about this film.
Not a problem, my guy. So if you're not got anything else to say, we can jump straight into it.
Let's do it.
Right, so Across the Spider-Verse. When it was first announced, obviously I knew everybody was going to be going off the rails. You know, it's another Spider-Man thing. And the first one was really good. I did really enjoy the first one. Was I a mega fan like everybody else? Not really, but I do really enjoy these films. So how about you? Stu? What were your opinions when they first announced the movie?
Well, it's interesting, Adam, because I only watched Into the Spider-Verse like a couple of weeks ago. So when it was announced, I was like, I suppose at the time I was thinking, well, you know, the first one was very popular and made a lot of money, so it made sense that they would do a sequel. But that's really all my thought process was.
Yeah.
When it was announced, because I hadn't watched the first one yet.
Oh, well, fair it is. So, other than the first opinions, let's go straight into the movie itself, because this opening was a really good opening. Surprisingly, for someone like myself, you know, Stu, you know me, sometimes when they focus too much on a character, especially a female character, unless it's very warranted, I don't really necessarily like it. But the opening of this film with Gwen and her backstory and seeing her version of Peter and how he became the Lizard, to me, was such a great opening. It pulled on the heartstrings. You saw a character that was relatable. Yeah, she was playing drums. You know, she's a rock chick. It is what it is. You know, some people say I'm a rock guy. They're not wrong. So very fair point. But I really like the opening because of that, because you got to see a dynamic with Gwen that you don't normally get to see within these types of animated movies. Like, obviously Gwen was in the first one, but obviously they have to establish Miles and stuff. So this one was really good because you got to see the backstory of Gwen and see what was going on in her life before then it takes you into the next scene. So how about you, Stuart? How are you feeling about the beginning of this movie?
It was unexpected. Like, it was an unexpected start, but surprisingly a welcome one for me, because I think Gwen's a very likable female character.
Yeah.
And I think this was a necessary thing to do because she plays a much more pivotal role in this film than the previous film.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it was necessary to get us as the audience to care more about her character than we already did.
Yeah. That's a very good take, I must say, because one of the things that I always find funny about the animated movies is, like, obviously when it's animated, they tend to just focus on like the big name in the movie. So you will usually normally start off, if it's a Batman project, you get Batman or Bruce Wayne. You know, if it goes to like Spider-Man, you get Spider-Man. But this one was the difference in that. And I really like that because for me, when it comes to openings of movies, I've said it before, I've said it on other videos on this channel, the opening's very important. Either don't overdo it like a lot of movies are doing now, and you can keep it simple, or at least have a good pace. And this is one of the ones where it had both for me. It really did. Like, it had a good pace, but also had a really good opening to the point where it was like, it wasn't unnecessarily too long, and it wasn't unnecessarily, you know,
Absolutely
too little. It was just enough to get you into the movie.
I 100% agree with that, Adam. And I think, like, one thing that I was very surprised with this film is that this film is like 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't bored once. There wasn't a single moment throughout the film where I was like, this is dragging on a bit, you know? Like, is that sequence really necessary? I didn't feel that way at all throughout the entire of the film. And I think that's quite difficult, I think, to subjectively do in this day and age of films and stuff. So
definitely,
I got to take my hats off to the people working on this film, because they really, the pacing was fantastic, I thought.
Yeah. No, that's really true, because one of the things that I like about this story, especially the overarching story of this, is obviously the every Spider-Man known to Earth. If you've seen the trailers, you've seen the trailers. So this is now spoiler territory. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave the video and come back because this is getting spoiler now. Every single version of Spider-Man's like in this movie, like completely, like it's unbelievable. Like they might not be like an animated version of them, but even Toby and Andrew were thrown in there, and also they threw a reference to No Way Home. They couldn't technically show Tom, but Miguel specifically says in one of the scenes that some nerd in Doctor Strange on Earth 19,000 and odd caused all of this to happen. And I love that because not a lot of animated movies tend to tie in with their live action counterparts. And that's one thing that I thought was really cool about this because so many times we get an animated movie that's supposed to be somewhat loosely connected to the like continuity of something, but they never really establish it other than maybe some of the names or someone that looks like their version in the movie. So I really did enjoy that. How about you? What was your sort of take is like seeing all these different Spider-Men and also having the fact that they had Tom and Andrew and Toby all within this like sort of universe as well?
I think they used it very well. It wasn't like where you've seen a lot of the MCU films now. It's like, hey, cameo. That means the film's good, is it?
Yeah.
You know, it served a purpose for them being referenced, and they didn't overshadow at all what made the first film so great and what makes this film good as well. You know, it kept the focus on Miles and Gwen and Miguel and Peter Ben Parker in this universe anyway. You know, it kept the focus on the main cast. It was just a small like fun Easter egg, but it didn't take away at all. Like it didn't feel like it was unnecessary. It felt like this is a nice way to put a reference in.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with that because to me, like, I'll like especially this new version of like Ben Peter Parker, like or Peter whatever. I get confused with the order of the stuff, man. It is what it is, right? I love this take on him, especially because he is now a father, which is so funny to see him become from the very old depressed type of guy that he used to be to then being this happy positive dad that has became the sort of new wave Facebook mum where they're like, look at this picture of my kid, look at this picture of my kid, and you're like, all right, cool, chill, I see it, your kid's awesome, nice, but you don't have to keep posting them every 5 minutes, like we get it.
Oh yeah, that's very true. Do you know what? It's interesting because I do admit, like, I thought I liked Peter Parker in this film. I liked his character, but I felt he was subjectively a little bit of a joke.
Yeah.
In this film, and I felt like the script was trying to put him down quite a bit. And I don't know if that was intentional or whatever, but I just felt like he could have been treated with a little bit more respect, in my opinion.
I could see what you're saying, to be honest, because when I was watching it myself, I noticed that he seemed to be at the butt of a lot of jokes, and like Miles got more of like the no, I can do what I want because I'm Spider-Man sort of storyline.
Because it's his story, right? But I just felt like, for example, the scene where I think Jessica Drew, which she was cool, but when she told Peter Parker, I'm probably reading too much into this, but when she told Peter Parker, he was not a good mentor to Miles, I was like, shut up.
No, I could see what you're saying, because especially because she was supposedly mentoring like Gwen in this movie at certain points, and she done a terrible job. So it's one of those things that it's kind of a hypocrisy, it's kind of a hypocritical at some point. And that's
likable though. It's just that one bit I was just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily needed. I see what you're saying, yeah. So what are some of your sort of like collective thoughts on like the stories that everyone had, like Miles, Peter, and Gwen? Like, what was your overall sort of takeaway from their story?
I thought the main cast generally, I would argue would be Miles, Gwen, Peter, and probably Miguel as well.
Yeah.
And I thought they all served their own stories very well. I think again, Miles and Gwen were the main stars, and I thought they were both fantastic. And I thought Miguel was a great addition to the story. I like his suit as well. His suit was badass, and his abilities. The way he delivered that Doctor Strange 9999 or whatever quote, that just made me laugh quite a bit. And again, like Peter, as I said earlier, like I felt like again he could have been treated with subjectively a little bit more respect, but he was still likable for sure.
Yeah, no, I can see what you're saying. See, for me, one of the things that I found funny about Miguel, and just be honest, dude, doesn't he not remind you of every superhero from DCEU? He's the depresso Spider-Man. He's the one that is so serious, where you feel like a Nirvana song should be playing. He should be doing a sort of song montage out of a window because he's so, I'm so serious sort of take.
Yeah, that's very true. I didn't think about that, but that's a very good analogy.
Yeah, but like one of the things that I really like about Miguel's character in this, though, because the thing that I love about this movie is that I know there's going to be a lot of people that are like, Miles is right, but Miguel actually has a really good point. So if what we're talking about is Miles throughout the story, Len finds out that he's supposedly meant to be a glitch. He wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man. He got the Spider-Man powers by accident. So Miguel, to keep the timelining canon, as they say it, ironically mocking how everybody's like, that's not canon, which I kind of found funny because it was a little nod to all, like, you know, the mega geeks that can't help but say that's not comic book accurate. Sometimes, of course, I'm that person, but sometimes it's not necessarily needed, and I think that's the ones that they were kind of jabbing at, so I didn't feel personally attacked by that, and even if I did, I wasn't going to make a scene about it. It is what it is.
I never felt like because I'm quite someone who quite cares about respecting source material when you adapt stuff. But I never got that impression, so I think they were just doing it like just because it's subjectively kind of woven into the plot.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
In your face about it.
The thing that I liked about his characters, especially, was because he had a point. Like, Miles was willing to sacrifice the entire universe of universes for one person, and I think that's what I'm going to love. Because obviously there's a little teaser for, and it's already been announced that there's going to be another one coming out very soon, actually, ironically. So they clearly done this back to back. So they clearly knew where they were wanting to go with the story. But the thing that I liked about Miguel's story was that you could see why he was the way he was. He wasn't just being a douche. He wasn't trying to be a tyrant. He was legit. He tried to do what Miles did and knows how bad it went. And he lost what made him happy. And that's a part of becoming Spider-Man. And that is like the integral part. If it's not, even if it's not Peter Parker, like, you know, Spider-Gwen, she loses Peter. You know, when it comes to other Spider women or men within this universe, they all lose someone close to them. That is an integral part of the character. And obviously Miles is trying to stop that, which obviously then would mean that the timelines would get all mixed up. And obviously, you know, you want him to win. You know, you want his point to be right, where he can somehow find a way to have someone not die and have the luxury of also being Spider-Man. But I would rather them not do that, if I'm to be honest. I would rather like show Miles grow as Spider-Man, because as of right now, he's still in his sort of teenage years. He's a lot taller, you know. He's became a Giga Chad in this one, you know. He's muscular. He's a lot taller, and everybody keeps pointing that out. He's like, "Are you bleeding from the armpits?" Which I find it a weird sort of thing to be saying to someone, but I guess when you're Spider-Man, you must bleed from your armpits or something.
I suppose so, right?
So I would be used to. What were your sort of thoughts on the Miguel sort of storyline?
I thought I pretty much agree with everything you said, man. Like, I think it makes sense why he is who he is and why he was doing what he's doing. Yeah, I just thought he played a good part in the story that they were telling. And he's technically, I suppose, an antagonist, but I wouldn't really consider him an antagonist. He was just someone who is trying to do things subjectively right.
Yeah.
He's relying on logic more than emotional feelings.
Yeah.
And Miles is doing the opposite of that. And I think there's
common ground.
There's common ground, but there's also there's positives to why you should take both sides of that argument. But that's why they obviously clashed.
So this is where we get controversial, and that's why I was loving this, because now I get to ask you, if you were in Miles' shoes, or if you were on the outside, who would you choose to stand with in this moment in time? Would you stand with Miles, or would you stand with Miguel?
I would say it depends how close I would be with Miles, and how close I am with the person he's trying to save.
Yeah.
So, like, if Miles's father was like a second father to me, I'm quite confident I would side with Miles.
Okay.
But from like a backstat, from a a viewer perspective,
Yeah.
I was rooting for Miles,
Mhm.
but I think genuinely speaking, Miguel's side of the argument, it does make more sense.
Yeah. See, I like your answer there because you answered, but you didn't have to answer so that you chose one side, and I like that because a lot of people would feel like choosing one side. So because it's me though, I'm going to do that because it's funny, and why not? So for me, the reason this is an actual factual thing, the reason why I genuinely I'm going to go against the grain, I agree with Miguel because for me, right, as much as I understand that you don't want these bad things happening, right, it comes down to the ultimate question. Would you let the rest of the world die just to save one person that was really close to you because you were really close to them? Or would you sacrifice in the name of saving the rest of the people? And yes, there's probably people out there that are like, well, the world's shit anyway, so we might as well just let them all die. And it's like, no, 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 no. You're forgetting a very important thing here. And the mass of what you think is all out there. You just think the majority of the world sucks, but that's just because you're showing a minority of what's going on in there. There's plenty and a good majority of good people out there that you're willing to sacrifice because you're too scared to lose one really close person. And trust me, I understand it would be hard. Of course, it's going to be hard. That's the whole point of Spider-Man, though, is doing that sacrifice. For me, yeah, I obviously would hope there could be a way, but logically speaking, and an irrational way of speaking, and objectively speaking instead of subjectively speaking, the objective fact is he's going to let a lot of people die if it doesn't go right. So was it really worth it in the end?
And adding on to your point, if Miles's father found out that if he was saved, the world collapses, like he would have survivor's guilt.
Mm-hmm.
He would feel bad. Like he would be like, why? Like there would be because he seems like he's a really good guy
Yeah.
and a really good man and a good father. And I feel like while he would be very grateful to Miles for saving his life,
Yeah.
there's a possibility that he may feel bad for him living at the expense of the world falling apart.
See, one of my points, because I agree with Miguel, is because I generally don't believe that if Miles Daz knew that he wouldn't sacrifice himself. I know because for his son and for everyone else in the world, he would sacrifice himself because that's where Miles gets it from. Like, that's who taught him these lessons. So I know fine well that that's the case. And that's why I chose Miguel's side. And I know people can hate on me in the comment sections, come for me, do all that, it's fine. I'm sorry, right? I love Miles just as much as the rest of you guys, but just because he has electric powers doesn't mean I'm going to automatically choose his side. I'm sorry. Like, they're cool and all, but, like, also, I want to talk about that. That was one little gripe I had about this movie. It's like, I loved the story up until that point where it was like, then Miguel captures him, and all of a sudden, this is when his electric powers start, and then all of a sudden, it's all because he's like, you can't tell me what to do! So because he was being what you could only describe as a child, he got electric powers. Last time I checked, when a child throws a hissy fit, they don't automatically start sparking themselves. So, I don't know. But
I think he does have like electric powers, I think.
Oh no, he does definitely have the powers.
It was a very convenient
like
part for him to get it.
Yeah. See, for me, it was just kind of like, I know he has those powers and he has them in the game and he has them in the comics, but I think they could have done a better way of giving him the powers instead of like, just like, I'm upset. Like, fair enough. It is what it is. That's the only one slightly gripe I thought.
That's a fair point for sure.
Yeah. Also, within this movie, one of my favorite characters, and I know that it's ironic, and she'll laugh about this because he knows what my personality is. Like, of course I love Spider-Punk. That guy was just me to a T. I loved that guy. Like, legit, he was like, the entire time he was just like, I don't want to be here. Like, why are we doing this? And like, why is everybody being so controlling? Why are we telling everyone else what to do? And it's like, when he meets the baby and he's sitting there like, oh, this baby's an anarchist. Oh, this baby just dumped on the system. Respect. And I'm like, I found it so funny. I thought he was a great addition to this movie, especially with like his like his attitude and his like comedic timing was so on par because like for me like sometimes it's funny to see like somebody like that just thrown in a movie like this, because normally, you know, there's always everybody stands for something, where he's necessarily like he stands for something, but he just stands for like abolishing everything. So it's funny seeing like every other Spider-Man, you know, like having quips, being funny, or like having their own sort of way of looking at things. But then he's just like, ah, nah, screw the system. Like even at one scene, he's just like, yeah, guys, I quit, and just disappears. I love that. How about you, Stu? What was your sort of thoughts on Spider-Punk?
This is gonna be interesting because I didn't warm to him that much.
Oh, fair enough.
I didn't like. I didn't hate him. Hate is a strong word, but I didn't really like him either. I found him a bit. I'm gonna be honest. I found him a bit irritating.
Yeah.
Like I found his character and the way he was written. I just found him a bit annoying.
No, I can see what you're saying, because at times I think they did take it a bit too far. Where even I was like, as much as I like this character, they did, but like some of the stuff he came out with, which I'm like having a hard time remembering the exact words, but I know exactly what I'm on about. Some of them I was just like, that was not really necessarily. It could be annoying at times when he was interjecting and stuff. The next character,
I just didn't warm to him. I don't like I don't know. They're just like. Which is interesting because I felt like he's the type of character that I would warm to if he was in real life.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, this guy's a cool dude, but I don't know. Just as a viewer, I was like, I don't know. I just didn't vibe with him.
That's a fair point. The next one I want to talk about, though, and this is probably one of my favorite takes on this character because it's my favorite Spider-Man suit. But this take of him was just, I do not know what they were doing. Like, I know Miguel was sad and depressed, but what did you do to my boy Ben Reilly, by the way? The one Spider-Man that I can actually look like and be, and has my favorite Spider-Man costume, you made him depressed with a hella deep voice. He's never been shown like that in the history of his character. Like legit, the first time you meet him, he's sitting there hanging on the thing, like so depressed, and then they're like, and then obviously Miles is like, oh hey there, and he's like, I'm trying to deal with a traumatic thing in my past, and you're just like, what? Like, what the hell's going on here? And he obviously, I don't know about high pitch, but he's like he's like they've gave him like the Christian Bale Batman voice type deal. Like he's the deep voiced Spider-Man, which I found quite funny, but also quite annoyed because I really like that suit, and obviously I really do like Ben Reilly as a character, especially because in this movie he has long blonde hair, and it's like, you know, maybe somebody else that we all know has nice long blonde hair, and it's kind of offensive to me to be put in a stereotype. But how about you, Stu? What was your sort of take on the Ben Reilly that they put in this movie?
I feel really bad right now because I don't remember him at all.
Right. So he's the one that has the long blonde hair, and it's like the old school hoodie, and it's just plain red suit with the white eyes.
I don't remember him.
Fair enough.
I feel terrible. Like I felt if I saw a picture. Oh yes, okay.
Oh, you probably would. That's fair.
Like when you were talking about him, I had no clue.
Yeah, well, to be fair, unless you're like me and you're a fan of that character, he doesn't really stick out in the movie. He's just another one of the Spider-Man. But that's because he did have a little bit.
And so many Spider-Man left, right, and center. It's hard to keep up sometimes.
Trust me, I know. One thing I do love about the cameos in this movie were so funny. They had the Prowler, Donald Glover, sitting in a cage for no apparent reason, and he's not even been announced as a Prowler yet in any universe. So the fact that he's there is just a bit weird.
That was so random. Like, and what's scary is not scary, but like what's interesting is I didn't recognize him at first.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell was that? It's Donald Glover. Oh shit!
It's like he's not even been announced the Prowler yet, but he's sitting there in the whole Prowler get up in a cage, and you're like, oh, I haven't seen that yet. And then, some of the other like cameos that I really enjoyed was like they're like, we've got everybody from all different universes, and it's the virtual reality girl, and all you hear is Yuri Lowenthal, the PS4 Spider-Man in the background, being like, yo, what the hell am I?
Oh yeah. Because he was like in between like two tanks somewhere. He was like, how do I get home or something like that.
I
remember that bit. That was fun.
See, I love that sort of stuff. And like, obviously, you know, one sad part about this movie though, Spider-Ham wasn't in it, like, at all. Like, he didn't really show up until like right at the end. And it was only a running cameo. All he did was run. I was like, where was my Spider-Ham, man?
Spider-Ham, man.
Exactly. But like there were so many Spider-Men in this movie. Like it's physically impossible. One thing I'm going to give the creators of this a round of applause for. They finally brought back my main man, Spectacular Spider-Man. Finally, after all those years of getting cancelled too early, we see the main man himself. Technically, he only says one line, but he killed that one line, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. They handled all the cameos so well.
Yeah.
They did such a good job of it. And I think the MCU could learn a thing or two from that.
Yeah, as of right now, I can totally agree. Don't tell MCU though, because then they're just gonna get annoyed at us, just like all the MCU fanboys do tend to. And it's like, dude, chill. Sorry. Anyway, moving forward. One of the other things that I would like to touch upon is obviously the Miles storyline. I was saving best till last technically because for me, Miles' storyline was such a really good part of this story. He's finally at his Peter Parker moment. He's struggling to balance his school life with his actual Spider-Man life, and it's getting in the way, and he the nemesis of this movie was really funny because it was basically just a guy like Stu. He could have been a guy like Stu, just a normal average guy scientist that accidentally got hit with a thing that he made to teleport a spider here that created Miles. As that's how he's an anomaly and how he's a bad version of Spider-Man and he shouldn't have been Spider-Man to begin with. It was supposed to be Peter, but because he got it kind of gets convoluted after a bit. Like that part was okay. I just didn't really care for it. But like his scenes were hilarious when he's sitting there trying to rob things and he's just missing everything, and then Miles is just sitting making like some sort of version of like a steak bake. It looks like that anyway. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but he's just sitting there making it, and he's just looking at this guy like, is this guy real? Like, is this guy really meant to be this big old evil guy?
You know what? I thought the Spot was a great villain. I'm not saying like in terms of great villain, I'm not like putting him up there with like again, I can't think of a very good villain right now, but only like
Thanos.
Thanos, well, exactly like Thanos. I wouldn't put him on that level, but just in terms of, I really liked how he as a villain progressed.
Yeah.
I thought his powers were really cool as well. But I just liked how he got stronger and stronger and more threatening and threatening as a villain. He turned from just like this silly bank robber joke to, oh shit.
He's got weight.
yeah. Like,
that's the
you
thing.
Gotta stop this guy.
That's what I like about like this is that it was really fun. Like for me, like the Spot is such a fucking horrible bad name for a supervillain, but it's also on brand, so I can't hate on it too much. So, like it's funny because obviously what we find out during this movie is that Miles accidentally created him at one point in the within the last year, because this is like 18 months later after like the last movie, and that's that one thing for certain. Like I know it's been 18 months, but Miles had one hell of a fucking growth spurt. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say that, man. Like he was towering over Gwen in this movie, and obviously the dynamic between his parents and Miles in this movie was just so hilarious, man. I like every time they were together, I was always laughing about things because, especially like the first scene you see them together when he's trying to run to the skill meeting and stuff, and then one thing that I loved, right, and I don't know if you've noticed, you actually noticed it yourself during the movie. They took the mick out of political correctness without even people knowing, because they were like, because they were like, oh, we'll give you a sob story, we'll put it on the news, and that's how you can get away with not having like a certain grade. And I'm like, oh my god, look!
Oh wow, yeah.
I was like, no way, Sony just done that? No way, Sony of all people just called it.
You know what? Fair play.
I was like, what the hell? I was like, no way.
I did not realize that. That's
It was so undertone though. Like that's what I loved about it. They made it seem like a genuine thing, but I was like, hold on a minute. Did they just say they're going to make him a newsworthy story so he can get away from the fact that he's sliding?
You crying on TV and showing how sorry you are, and then
because they were talking about how like he came from a poor upbringing and stuff, and then the two parents are like, poor upbringing, like I'm from Puerto Rico, that's American, and his dad's like, we lived in the suburbs. And I'm like, yo, I cannot believe Spider-Man just did this. What the hell?
Wow, yeah. I thought the parents as well were great. Like I thought they played a good role as well, and I really liked the dynamic between Miles and his parents. I thought I thought that part of the story again. Like I just thought every single character that was there
Mhm.
they served a purpose.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
so even like the punk rock guy, even though I didn't particularly like him, he served a purpose.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's what I think makes this film really, one of many reasons why this film is so good, because every character, pretty much, that is in this film, there is a reason for them being there.
Yeah. It's not like a lot of other movies that, like even one I recently reviewed, where some of the side characters are there for like 5 minutes and they don't do anything, but they're just in the movie for some strange reason. So
Yeah.
I totally agree, because that's one of the things that I really liked about their dynamic though is like, you've got Miles trying to console his dad because his dad's annoyed that the perp got away, and he doesn't know what to do. He's sitting talking in a deeper voice because obviously he's trying to disguise it because he doesn't want, because that's what I like about it. They called it out knowing that obviously there's a good chance if his dad did know, like he would know by the voice, because when he's running away and doing all these cool things, he's like, yo, you're like my son. And it's like, on the nose, on the nose.
Father's
Like,
intuition, I
yeah.
suppose.
And that's what I found quite funny. Also when it comes to like the whole his mother, like when his mother meets Gwen, and then she's like, "Oh, there's a woman on the scene," and then she's like, "Don't take him away from me," and she's like, "What?" And she's like, "What?"
Protection, mother's protection.
Well, it's not even mother's protection. This is when it's getting overbearing mother, like, oh
Yeah.
no, she's like, don't steal my son. And Gwen's like, what? Like, I wasn't trying to steal your son. What are you on about?
There was obviously a romantic tension
Tone.
between Miles and Gwen, for sure.
Yeah.
I forgot, for crying out loud, Miles was drawing her all the time in that book. There was definitely some romantic tension. I think we'll see that payoff in the third one.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing though. Like, let's be honest. If in the real world you're sitting drawing a picture of a girl over and over again, that's called stalking. In animated films, that's okay. So
Yeah.
just thought
it's entertainment. It's fine.
Yeah. Until it becomes real life. But anyway, moving on.
And when it becomes real life, that's a different matter.
So you were also going to say, Stu?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think like we covered like all the points. Again, the action sequences were fantastic. They were
amazing.
The art and animation was perfect, probably even better than the first one.
I would say so.
And that's one thing. I liked how different all the characters looked. That added to the vibe of the film, is that every character unique and had their own purpose and their own identity.
Oh, you just reminded me as well by saying that of they had legit even the old school 1960s Spider-Man show up in this movie. And as a kid that grew up waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch the 1960s in color version of Spider-Man, I thank you, Sony. Sony, this is the rare time I'll be thanking you. So take it, please. Thank you for that. Especially because they even had the Japanese Spider-Man there as well. Like the Toei one.
They
I
had
was
the
like,
Lego Spider-Man in there.
Dude, I loved that. That was so funny.
Just they got it. They got all the characters. And I just think that's so, like, the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, how amazing they pulled that off. Just think about how many cameos and characters were in this film, but they all got them right.
Yeah, even like the Vulture at the beginning, he was a completely different animation style to the rest of the things around him.
Yeah,
it's like, how do you pull that off?
Just like you can tell a lot of passion and hard work and dedication went into this film. They weren't just throwing it out there for the sake of content on a streaming service. There was a lot of heart and soul that went into this.
Yeah, a lot animation. I'll give them that. So let's go into some of the negative points that you have written down, because for me, like certain stuff, like like how I was saying, like for me, I didn't really care for the explanation of how Miles was an anomaly. It just didn't really bother me. It was like, yeah, it is what it is. So what about you?
We've covered quite a bit of it. So obviously the punk rock Spider-Man. I get the impression that this opinion is a unpopular opinion. But yeah, I just didn't want his character as much as I think a lot of people did. I think with Jessica Drew, with Peter Parker, saying that one line, he's not a good mentor. I think I did prefer the first one. But again, I thought this film was great. Don't get me wrong, it was a good film. And I understand, like, the general argument is that when you do a sequel, you up the stakes, right? So, and they did a great job with upping the stakes, but I just felt I liked how a bit more grounded the first one was. So I did prefer the first one a bit, and this is me being very picky. And again, big spoilers for the ending. I mean, if you're still watching at this point, I guess it doesn't matter, but Miles Morales' Prowler's hairstyle, I couldn't take him seriously.
Yeah, the weird like dreadlock things.
I'm sorry, I just could not take Miles Morales' Prowler's seriously when I saw that hairstyle. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
no,
just couldn't do it.
I understand what you're saying, to be honest. I was even a bit like, well, see, for me, I think the best way to put this movie as like and a sort of way of putting it, why people could prefer the first one, is this is a great setup movie, because this is ultimately what it is. It's a setup movie for the next part, and so it does make it bigger and grander, but it leaves it on a cliffhanger, and obviously the cliffhanger is there's an alternative version of Miles who is the Prowler, and Miles was trying to get home. He tells his mum he's Spider-Man, and in this universe, Spider-Man doesn't exist apparently because they don't know who he is. So then he gets captured by his quote unquote dead uncle, because obviously clearly quote unquote he's not dead in this universe. And then Miles comes as the Prowler, and then we see Gwen throughout the end of this movie fighting with, should she be like Miguel and try help him or try help Peter? She has a lovely talk with her dad, and obviously she then goes to talk to the OG Peter with the child, and they decide to create their own Super Spider-Man team with Spider-Punk, Spider-Ham, the big like one from the first one, the one that was like the weird anime girl and the Spider-Man like sort of tank suit. Yeah,
he was cool as well.
And Spider-Man Noir was there, which I found quite cool.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was like the first time you saw him in the movie too. Like, or if he was in it, he must have been in the background somewhere. Because
I think that was the first. That was like when we saw him at the end. That was the only time we really saw him.
Yeah. And one last other thing I want to touch upon before we probably start wrapping this up a bit is the relationship between Miles and Peter in this movie. I loved, because it was so funny. It was such like a dad-son relationship, and he's like, hold the baby, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna hold the baby, I think it will help her vibe, hold the baby.
Again, like that's what made the first one so good, is that Miles turned Peter into this loser who lost everything, and meeting Miles made him regain his confidence, regain his reason as to why he became Spider-Man. And you know, he's now happily back with MJ, have a child and everything, and you know,
and one of the best lines,
between the two of them.
One of the best lines in that as well is the fact that he turned around and was like, the reason why I decided to have her was because of you.
Oh yeah.
I want her to grow up like you. And I was like, I found that quite funny. But one thing, I'm going to say this because as much as I love the little spider baby, she was funny. In reality, and they've done it in the comic books, Mary Jane would have died with her radioactiveness, man. Like, it's never been like established that she could have Spider-Man's kid for that reason. So it doesn't sort of make sense, but I will give it a pass because it actually worked quite well. But it was quite funny to be like, hold on a minute, that means they were doing the quote-unquote devil's tango, and somehow she didn't die. Okay.
If you think about it as well, also, Peter was kind of being an irresponsible dad.
Oh, no, I loved it. I loved it.
I was just like, dude, like, again, because it's entertainment, it's funny. But
see, for me, I loved it. Like, I loved that he was like the more fun parent, where he was like, I knew I shouldn't have made her that web shooter. And I'm sitting like, what the hell makes a web shooter for like a baby?
That's a much better way of looking at it. Like, you know.
Yeah, he's more like the fun parent that Mary Jane's like, did you take her out fighting again? He's like, no. And I love that dynamic.
Yeah.
But overall, what I would say, I would give this film, funnily enough, a solid 8 out of 10. If you know, you know. If you don't know, then you're out of the loop. Anyway, how about you, Stu? What would you sort of rate this movie?
So I would give it a 7 out of 10. I rated the first one a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, not as good as the first one, but still a thoroughly entertaining film. And besides Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and No Way Home and Shang-Chi, it was nice to watch a superhero film and walk out feeling
happy.
I
agree, dude. Unfortunately, if you know about MCU and DC at the moment, it's not been the best for either side of them. So I totally agree. But anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this little fun back and forth review. And thanks to my good friend Stu for coming on, because this is the first time you guys are getting to see him. So don't be sitting there, you know, hitting him up in the DMs. No, Stu is a nice, lovely man. He won't be going after any people just trying to hit him up, just so I put it out there, you know. But anyway, guys, I have been Kane and Wilf. That has been Stu, and I shall see you guys in the next video.
Take care, guys.